I wanted to make a whole video here because a lot of people have been asking me what my thoughts on season 4 thus far is. Now, if you watch like any of the things like leading up to season 4, you would have to go back a ways, but I did talk a lot about what I expected season 4 to be like. I'll just summarize it quick because it's easy to summarize. I did not want to do any of this. Like, I'm not a big fan of the concept. I'm not a big fan of, deleting dungeons that were there for 2 years in favor of new dungeons. And I'm also not a favor of it happening when it happened because, I feel like, especially last expansion, but, Legion and really every expansion, as far back I can even remember this in Wrath, was like the best time for me as a person who plays WoW is at the end of an expansion, is like, literally the last few months of the expansion. And a lot of times people don't like that. You know what I mean? They feel the opposite. When you're 12 months deep into a single season, yeah, things are a little stale for people. But to me, it's like the distilled essence of WoW is shown that time because there's no more progression. You know what I mean? Like you basically hit this kind of like almost like artificial barrier where the game is not giving you anything else that you could possibly use. There's no real, there's nothing coming. There's nothing going to be changing about what you're doing right now. You're just waiting. And that sounds weird to say, but I actually like that. That's my favorite time in the expansion typically, because you can just explore the unfettered look at it. There's no rush. You don't feel like, oh my God, I have to get this, and this, or I can't believe I still haven't done this, and this. It's over. You know what I mean? And you just wait for it to be fully over. So I actually like that part. And I think that's the best time for keys because you have seen everything. There's never any more questions. But on top of that, I think it's the time when you can, you know, somebody who might play the entire expansion like I have, that's the time that they're going to shine the most. So I'm not really the best player. I can't step into any dungeon and dominate it. You know what I mean? I play only Blood DK, and the only reason I'm any success at all in this game is because I'm very dedicated to it. I've played it and spent time in it for a very, very long time. So when they told me, they're moving all of the things that I kind of look forward to at the end of a long expansion, I was shocked. And I wasn't too happy about it. But I'm here to tell you today that I was wrong. I was actually wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. It's a lot more fun than I expected. We're 1 week into it, so maybe I'll feel differently another 8 weeks or something from now. But I'm gonna tell you what's different about it and what I like about it the most. Okay. I hadn't really thought about what it meant to do dungeons that we had really never or haven't done in an incredibly long time on Mythic Plus. Now, to be fair, some of these aren't really in that category. Obviously, two of them aren't, like super aren't. But we also have the workshop and junkyard dungeons. These aren't really that old. I know them pretty well, and it's come back very quickly. But Karazhan has been a trek, and obviously the WoD dungeons. I'll talk a little bit about Grimrail in a second, but I think it's been handled well. And at the end of the day, you know what it ends up feeling like? It ends up feeling like we have all new dungeons. Obviously, I think like Streets and Gambit is not working out great in terms of the balance. Like those dungeons are just clearly easier for everybody, even if, the stats show Junkyard is the best key. I think like your average pug is going to succeed more in those two dungeons. But that's kind of why I'm looking forward to Dragonflight, because it's seemingly going to be like 8 new dungeons altogether. Like they won't have 2 that we've just done for a year, but you don't know how that's going to get handled. But that's what I hope will happen. But the thing that maybe wasn't obvious to me before was that the only other time you ever get a whole slew of new dungeons where everything feels new is the beginning of the expansion. And usually the beginning of the expansion is very overwhelming, or more so you're in this rush, like kind of what I was just describing there. It's the exact opposite, right? So it's actually very funny because the things I usually look forward to where there's just like, just deep breath, just wait, just play the game, find fun in it the way you might normally play it, and just no rush. There's no craziness happening. We're not in a rush to the tier's over. Basically everything's done. We just play the game now. That is the perfect time for them to add new dungeons. I never even thought about it because in the beginning of the expansion, adding new dungeons, it's like madness. It's like just craziness. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, I don't know anything about Blood DK. I don't know anything about gearing. I don't know anything about the systems, conduits, need renown, need to do all this world content, need to clear the raid, need to learn the raid, need to manage everything. That's gone. It doesn't exist. I can just log on and do keys. And I think that is actually at the heart of why I've been enjoying season 4 the most. People have asked me, and there's still a lot of people trying to min max the season and grind out gear and farm out gear and all this. It's over. Like, to me, this is it. This is like the pre patch. It's over. It's like a cool feeling, actually. I can just chill. I can just do whatever I want. Even if I get no more gear for the rest of the season, I'm good. Like, I fine. Like, I got everything I wanted to get out of Shadowlands. I have, I've seen the ups and downs, and now it's just like playtime. Now it's just like just have fun. You know what I mean? Just do whatever you want. And the keys have been Wild West so far, like I expected. But it's actually a lot more fun than I expected, to be honest. Now, this is because of the end of the expansion. I'm going to tell you that for sure. I feel confident in saying that I'm happy, and I didn't expect this because of that. But I don't know how I'll feel with the concept moving forward. But I do have to say, usually there's never an opportunity to really savor, like, usually whenever they add a whole pool of new dungeons, there's way more variables that are also new. But right now, the only variable is the dungeons. So it's like I'm playing kind of like some fan made version of WoW or something, It's like WoW 99% is here, and then there's just one new thing, and that's it. Go explore that. Usually it's like everything's new, go do everything. So it's actually kind of cool, man. I'm really having fun with it. I'm actually genuinely shocked at this. I have been I'm like, I have to actually hardcore force myself not like I want to do keys right now. I don't know when last time I felt that way. I really don't. It's cool. I have to say, I'm really having fun with it. But I also want to say some things that are kind of the opposite, okay? Because this is also important. And so, like, one of the reasons I wasn't excited about it was because I knew that there was going to be a big loss of progression. And I think it's pretty normal. I think most people are in this boat where you want to progress, you want to be better, you want to you want to have success. I guess is probably the distillation of it. And when you can't, it's not fun. That's just the way I feel about it. Maybe others don't necessarily agree, but and I was really worried that this season was going to present that. So I was worried that our success rates would be down. A lot of the frustrating things would be more up. Yeah, well, it's way worse than I expected. Let's put that way worse. It's way worse than I expected. At the time of recording this, which is Sunday night, I have the stats here. We did 46 total runs entered. 47.83% of them have been a disband. 67.39% of all keys we entered were not in time. That's very bad. And, I'll take some, obviously, like, I'm learning too, but it's not good. Like, the community hasn't really embraced it. I feel like a lot of people have not spent any time on it, and it's definitely gone. It's worse than I expected in that front. A lot of people are literally just joining keys with no understanding. Like, we've done now multiple keys where people are doing keys that are honestly higher than they should have even done last season, and they have no idea what's going on. We did one today, actually, on stream yesterday for you guys. The guy, a warrior, he died like 9 times, seven or 8 times. His gear broke. He had no idea what was going on in the dungeon, dude. When we entered the group, he was like, does this dungeon have a lot of big poles or small poles? So yeah, you should probably. This was a 20, by the way, 20 workshop. You should probably know that. I think like as as a baseline, I think that might be one thing that you should know. Like, we're not trying to be too elitist here. I don't want to be too elitist. I want to say you shouldn't have to know the bosses. Let's not take it that far. You should probably just know what's in the fucking dungeon, right? I mean, let's be serious here. So these are the kind of players that are out there right now. Hopefully we can rise above it. But all of that being said, man, as of right now, I just don't really care. It's actually that fun. And I'm really I'm shocked. I'm just shocked by how much fun I'm having. So yeah, I hope that we'll continue to have fun. One other thing I wanted to talk about though, Grimrail Depot. Okay, so I made a lot of comments on this. I made a video. I made multiple videos on Grimrail Depot, and I just want to say, Grimrail, I apologize. I apologize. I really do. It's weird to say it because when I did challenge modes in WoD, I would have happily stopped at 7. Like, it was supposed to do 8 of 8 dungeons. I would have stopped at 7. Like Grimrail was the least interesting one. It was the least fun one. It was the hardest one. The timer was the tightest. Everything about it sucked. And especially taking people through it who had no idea what they were doing, it was the worst. So I was like, that's going to really suck in this season. And you know what? They kind of made it work. I have to say, I haven't done it a ton, okay? But I'm actually really impressed with their transformation of the WoD dungeons into Mythic Plus. And the challenge mode component probably didn't help them much. So this is actually kind of impressive, especially Grimrail, because it had like 5 or 6 major flaws. Like I said, I made a whole video on why you should not have voted for Grimrail, and I still stand by that. It's definitely the worst choice. But if the worst choice can be made into this version of it, then I'm very optimistic, because if you don't know about this, in season 1 of Dragonflight, they're actually going to have a Jade Temple, Jade Turpet Temple, as Harry used to say. That is actually one of the Mythic Plus, and it's very similar to Grimrail in the fact that there's very limited amounts of space, both to navigate and in terms of like the sideways element of the dungeon. And it's like really, yeah, I think it's going to have a lot of the same problems that Grimrail has. But if they did what they did with Grimrail for that dungeon, they have my vote of confidence. I'm ready. I'm sold on it. Okay. And the thing about Grimrail that I was most concerned with is, well, really 2 things, and they kind of go hand in hand, was like the progression through the dungeon. Let's just call it that. But what I mean to say is count versus time. Okay. Now, when we did King's Rest, I feel like there was a lot of similarities there. King's Rest was a dungeon that had a very unfair outlook on trash. Like they basically put like 30 mobs in the whole dungeon, and you only needed to pull 25 of them. I just think that's really dumb. Grimrail's the same way, the exact same way. But as of right now, I don't feel pressured by the count. It doesn't feel prohibitive, and I think that's because of the timer. That dungeon actually seems very generous. Like, actually, I'm shocked at how generous it feels. Now, there's a lot of imbalance with dungeons right now, and we still are doing like lower keys than I probably should be doing. So I'm sure I'll feel differently in a month or two. But it's very generous, and it seems like it suits me very well. Like what I like to do is Blood DK. It can be accomplished in Grimmail well. I thought I wouldn't like it, but that last boss, it's a good stroke of the ego. Let me tell you that. When every single time you do the dungeon, you're the last one alive. But it's interesting. It's like basically made for Blood DK. Literally, everybody else around me just gets slaughtered, and I'm just soloing it every time. And we can upgrade keys like that. So it's interesting. I think the timer, I think they handled it well. Now, maybe there'll be some adjustments, and maybe Blizzard would look back on that and be like, maybe that's a little too lenient of a timer. But in gold challenge mode, it was like the first time you ever did that dungeon, you would beat it by 1 second or less. Or for the first time we ever did it, we beat it by 0 seconds. It was actually, the timer had ticked over, but it had not ticked over enough that it depleted it or whatever. And that, you might have seen that before in the game. It's very interesting. So, now that Karazhan has proven and shown its face to be the worst one, I'm definitely shocked by that. I do think lower care is a little overtuned, and I've showed this on stream. I've seen people literally get one shot by boss mechanics. We'll see what it's like on Fortified. But upper care, I think, is good. I think it's in good balance. And next week, I think it's going to get dominated, because really the only actual hard part are the bosses. And if there's more wiggle room on bosses, that there's really no trash in there. There really isn't. I mean, there's very little trash in there. There's really only going to be one dangerous mob, and people are already talking about skipping it. So I would love to hear your thoughts, guys. I really would. I've also been thinking about this topic. If you could have your all-star season, like if you know how we voted for Grimrail and Iron Docks, well, what happens if they allow you to vote for 8 dungeons? What would your 8 be? I'd love to hear it. I won't waste time. I've already done a whole dungeon tier list, by the way, if you want to see that. But yeah, I would list a few. Halls would definitely be number 1 for me. I'd love to see Motherlode. I would love to see a dungeon like Dark Heart Thicket, some of the old Legion dungeons as well. And I would love to see Scholomance again. Mob Challenge Mode Scholomance is probably my favorite actual dungeon ever. It had an immense amount of cool shit you can do in it. Lots of very interesting skips and things that you can do, especially as Blood DK2. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Season 4. At the end of the day, I'm just happy to be happy. It's kind of weird to say that, but everything's going so well right now, and Season 4 is actually at the forefront of it. It's kind of weird because Dragonflight is like 9.9 out of 10 on the alpha. Like I could sit and play Dragonflight for all day. Like I could literally just do nothing but 80 hours of Dragonflight, and I'm actually enjoying Season 4 more than that. So weird times in World of Warcraft. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.